Hi everyone. I just wanted to say hi. This is me. I'm Dan, and I want to say thanks for watching this. If you are watching, and I also wanted to say thanks to Brendan for putting this on. So without further ado, let's get started on a little paper that I wrote called Battle Pass Capitalism that I'll be talking about today. So we're talking about this thing. We're talking about battle passes. We're talking about capitalism. That's what we're here to do today. So, and as I already said, my name is Dan, and I'm a senior lecturer of digital sociology here at Manchester Metropolitan. And I'm still getting settled in since moving here last year. And it's been quite an interesting time to move across the ocean and start a new job and all that kind of stuff. But it's been fun. And part of the last year is I have been able to write this paper, so that was pretty good. And yeah, I've been writing about game production cultures for a long time now. So I got my foot first in the door of production studies by writing this paper in my master's dissertation around independent game development in Toronto, and I really focused on what was I was really interested in at the time was cultural policy and industrial policy, and the discursive framing of these things and how that impacted the realities of game development. So looking at this and the development of a iOS game called Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery EP was kind of what I did. And it was a lot of fun. This was a really cool paper, so I was pretty happy about that. And then spent quite a lot of time writing about Steam and the political economy of game distribution, looking at the politics of it, looking at the spatial dimensions of it, looking at mod making, looking at sales, looking at the kind of interactions between consumerism and production and stuff, but always kind of core to what I was working on for so long was really just thinking about how platforms were shaping people's both the production and distribution and consumption of video games. And some of that, I've then since published. And this paper, The Discourse of Digital Dispossession, was about the impact that commodification of game mods in Skyrim and how that affected communities that were focused on mod making in Skyrim and how they kind of reacted to that, how they kind of went on Reddit and got really mad at Gabe Newell and stuff like that. And obviously this wasn't like, mainstream game development, this is mod making, but mod making has always had a really important role in how we talk about game production. So that's why I wrote about it. And I think, it's pretty interesting. So that was kind of one direction I took when I was working on. And more recently, I've been working with David Nyborg and Chris Young on app stores, and we came out with this paper called App Imperialism, and we were looking at how the process of platformization and other kinds of political economic dynamics have shaped literally the way that wealth and capital flows around the world, and how that's mediated by platforms, and looking at value capture in different nation states. And here we focus on the example of Canada. But the focus here on Canada is really just as it's like we had numbers from the Canadian store, and that was a good way to reflect, especially in light of some of my previous work on cultural policy again, and how industrial policy shapes game production in Canada and how it relates to the rest of the world. And now, so why am I here today? Well, I wanted to talk about this paper, Battle Pass Capitalism, that I wrote in the last year. And this was kind of like, one of the first, like my solo project out the gate, having finished my postdoc and kind of moving on to my new position here at ManMet. I kind of wanted to investigate the, battle passes. And why? Well, I've been playing a lot of Battle Royale games since they came out. I thought they were really interesting. I think the free-to-play business model is really important. So that's what we're going to be talking about. So this is kind of like my career trajectory so far. And I hope, so that's me. That's what I'm doing. And so I kind of reflecting on the last, 10 years of my academic life, I've always been kind of really focused on production and distribution of digital games, right? Like I was really interested in political economy. Political economy is always very interested in labor conditions and stuff, and how labor shapes cultural production. But I really, for this paper, and in part because of the journal that the call for papers was in, the Journal of Consumer Culture, I wanted to focus on consumption, right? I wanted to talk about the consumption side of things. And gamification, this process of gamification, the process of making loot boxes and gotcha games and all these kinds of things that had really become the core driver of the mobile game business model, something that David Nyborg has talked about extensively. And this I was very inspirational in that way, and so like I wanted to kind of really focus on consumption, right? And for this paper, and kind of the question I started out, after having played it for quite a long time, was I was really curious about what exactly are consumers buying when they pay for loot boxes and battle passes, and that brought me to this.
One adult and 4 children.
Would you like to buy some itchy and scratchy money?
What's that?
Well, it's money that's made just for the park. It works just like regular money, but it's, fun.
Do it, Dad.
Well, okay, if it's fun. Let's see. I'll take $1,100 worth. Ah!
But like, kind of building on that, like I've been thinking about this kind of scene from The Simpsons for so long, this idea of taking real currency, like it says on, like the on money that, it is like exchangeable for goods and services, like it's, it's backed by the state. It's supposed to be good for everything. And I've been really fascinated with this idea of taking money and transforming it into different kinds of company script, transforming it into whatever these companies say it is, right? Like why digital currencies and not, like real money, right? And so obviously the free-to-play business model is like all about this. It's all about converting money into something different, and that's controlled by private corporations. So I wanted to do, like kind of investigate this, and I thought, well, hey, why don't I look at the Battle Royale game Apex Legends? It turns out I've been playing it a lot, getting my wins in, getting my losses in, a lot more losses than wins. And so I focused on doing, conducting for the first time this app walkthrough method that Light et al. Have, I think done a wonderful job on, and, it's a fantastic paper. Please check it out if you need to. So I analyzed this game and focused on 3 things, and then, conducted a walkthrough. So I'm going to talk today about the game's vision, its operating model, and its governance.
So, what is Apex Legends? Well, it's this. It's shooting things, getting into it, scrapping it up, It's a first-person shooter. It's a battle royale. And, a key part of these games is the surviving till the end. And here I am, at the end of the game. You can see the ring
10
there
seconds until
on the
the
map,
ring closes.
getting closer and closer. I want to be the winner here. Oh. Okay. I'm the kill leader, huh?
One squad between me and victory.
Let's do this. Alright. Got that W, got that win. And that's the point of the game, right? Getting to the end.
So, you know what this is. This is a game for hardcore gamers. It requires familiarity with SPF's genre conventions. You need to be familiar with the battle royale of getting to be the last team alive or the last person alive. Key also here, really want to emphasize this, there's no pay-to-win mechanics, right? Like some multiplayer games had been accused of this. Battlefront 2 famously, Star Wars Battlefront 2 famously was like accused of this. Didn't go over well with the community. Lots of anger about this. This game has none of those problems, right? Like it is a pure game, quote unquote, right? But you do also need to be comfortable and familiar with certain kinds of status items. So, you have to be okay with people having outfits or avatars or weapon skins, things like that are rare or expensive. You also need to be okay with a kind of high skill cap. This is a game that's a little bit more involved than, say, Fortnite, which is a quite accessible game, although I would argue also that Fortnite also has a very high skill cap. And this game, EA has also kind of positioned it very favorably with esports, right? They run local leagues and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff happening in the esports scene around this game. So let's talk about the operating model, right? This is all about the Benjamins here. This is, or in this case, your Canadian dollars. I did this walkthrough back when I was still living in Canada. So yeah, we have, we have got Apex coins. This is where you turn your hard-earned cash into bizarre and strangely priced forms of coins. Okay. Because the operating model of this game is free to play, right? But it does allow for in-app purchases. This is something, again, I think very well described and explained by David Nyborg's work, The Crushing Candy paper. I'm hoping if you haven't read it, definitely check it out. And we see here is, where's the revenue coming from? Well, it's coming from buying these Apex coins. You actually don't directly buy in-game skins using your dollars, right? There's actually not a straight conversion from real currencies to in-game items. You actually have to kind of launder it in a certain way through these Apex coins. And then these coins can be exchanged for all kinds of items that are normally sold in the game's store. And then also it's important for us to think about is the kind of nested natures of platforms here, okay? So we're going to see portions of this money that you put in to buy these Apex coins. Elements of that value, of that revenue, will be siphoned away by owners of different platforms. So EA distributes this game on PlayStation, on Microsoft's Xbox, through Steam. Money put in through those platforms will also be, certain chunks of it will be taken by those platforms. I think that's really important. And the nested nature of those platforms is actually really highlighted, but when you investigate the governance of these kinds of games. So we see here, I looked at two different end user license agreements. The first one being the Electronic Arts one, because they're the publisher of Apex Legends. So I looked kind of through this and looked at what kind of rights that consumers have to the objects that they're buying in games. But at the same time, because the nested nature of this, we also get to the others, the platform level governance. So here at the platform level, we have Sony's end user license agreement, their terms of service, which also regulate the ownership of the content that you're paying for. And what we see at the level of governance then is that users don't own anything. All content, the way it's framed in these documents is that all content are services. And the money that you put in, so when you pay for something like Apex coins, for instance, those coins are framed as entitlements. They're not actually legal currencies in any kind of sense of the word. They're just entitlements. And those entitlements can translate into other entitlements. At the same time, they also say that entitlements can be revoked at any time. And so we see here, and with the layer with like EA's governance and Sony's governance, we see an interlocking series of governance from multiple nested platforms and service providers. And I really want to stress this, is that consumption here looks a lot like a theme park, something you visit rather than something you own. And there's a lot of politics here, and we can think about Fortnite and Epic getting really upset with Apple and kind of forcing the issue by putting their own store inside the Fortnite app, which was being hosted by the iOS store. And of course, then Apple retaliating by removing the Fortnite app from their store. Now there's a lawsuit around this. So there's a lot of politics around the political economy of how money and how governance functions in these stores. And so one thing, and I kind of want to show you very briefly, there's not a lot of time to talk about this, but I want you to kind of look at and see what I did when I did this walkthrough, is that I focused on this screen, what you're looking at here, and actually not just the screen, but the series of screens that are all connected, basically the menu of this game of Apex Legends. And I kind of walked through the whole thing in my paper, and I really focused on just analyzing the layout of the game, how information is presented, where information is put. Here we're looking at the challenges that are associated with advancing up the battle pass. This is obviously where we see a translation between in-game activities and how that pays off on these screens where new entitlements, new content is unlocked. We see up in the right-hand corner your currencies. You've got crafting medals. You've got legend tokens. You've got Apex coins. We've got battle pass. progression here, and we can, I'll show you in a second here how the battle pass works. Like, you basically go up the ladder and you unlock new cosmetics and new kind of like in-game things or loading screens, things like that. Here's a loading screen. But like, let's kind of look at how, like, what if I want something right now? What if I don't want to play the game that much? I just want to keep unlocking content. You can buy battle pass levels. So I thought this was really, really interesting. The amount of money that you can spend to kind of like force your way through the battle pass. Rather than playing the game, you could just kind of like impulsively buy levels. And the content here, I don't think really justifies itself. I don't think it's really worth it. You're talking about spending probably, more than $100, getting to the top of this thing. We've got other spaces to spend money on. You can obviously dump Apex coins into this, here's a treasure pack, advancement tree. So there's all this information. There's all these different screens with different content on them. Over here we can go and look at the legend screens. We can see the kind of like probably the premier content for the game, which are the kind of the avatar skins themselves, right? And you can either spend real money to unlock these things, or you can craft items, which I accidentally do right now. Talk to me more about how I accidentally just bought that. I recorded this like last week, but I was very upset when I accidentally did that. But I wanted you to see it. I wanted you to see how money disappears, or specifically, these are currencies that I unlocked by playing the game. So to conclude, I have 3 major points. First is, if you're not playing Apex Legends, you're constantly encouraged to reflect about what you are entitled to, right? All those screens focus on what you have and what you don't have, and they give you opportunities to spend money. Also, I said, if you're not playing Apex Legends, when you're not playing the game, you're just navigating screens, you're shopping in it. You're kind of like looking over items. You're thinking about buying. You might be finding yourself in the consumption vortex, right? Like you're thinking about what you might want in the future. You're thinking about what you could save for. You're thinking about what maybe next month you might dump some Apex coin money into, all right? And finally, I said that the battle pass, what I was kind of paging through there a little bit, is it encourages players to stay engaged with the monetization layer of the game. At every moment when you advance up the battle pass, you get more items out of loot boxes, and you engage with those loot boxes. And I haven't even really talked much about loot boxes in this presentation, but they're here. You can open them, you get 3 items each, there's rarity trees, all that kind of stuff. So battle passes have you constantly engaging with and getting more items, and that keeps you engaged with that monetization layer of the game. Right, so the research implications of what I'm talking about today. I think that production studies would benefit greatly, and benefits greatly from deep engagement with the monetization layer of games. We should be really focusing on this. If we, I understand one side we're doing political economy, we're looking at labor conditions, we're looking at, the impact of cultural policies and other things on production of games. But I think also we need to be thinking about specifically, especially this like massive growth side of the industry in free to play. Is like we need to be looking at the monetization layer, right? How are they making money? How are they completing, the circuit of culture and the circuit of capital? Casual or structured walkthroughs of non-gameplay elements of games reveals a lot about the interests and priorities of game designers. And we can see, how these dynamics are global in scope, and they affect both independent as well as AAA game development. I think obviously certain kinds of independent game development aren't showing these effects, but I think broadly speaking, we can say that they're increasingly going to be impacted by this business model if they haven't already. And I think, finally, I think we should be tracking the flows of money from games through platforms to developers, and looking at the monetization layer is one really great way of seeing how that works. So that's all I've got for you today. So thanks for listening, and I look forward to discussing this more in depth over the coming week.